Recording is starting now. You should have a signal on your screen to tell you that. You just click on continue to say that you're fine with that. You've seen the text, I understand, I believe, when you signed up on Eventbrite, telling you about this event, but it appears on these screens here in just a moment. That was just a reminder about ALL being a membership association. If you're not a member of ALL, we do encourage you to investigate that and think about joining. If you're training in teaching at the moment, or if you're NQT, there are special rates for you to join, of course. Moving on then, we're going to see a little picture now of Carmen. There she is, telling you about her work in Manchester. She may mention some more of those things, of course, in the session. And after Carmen, we're going to meet Isabel, who's also in Manchester, and you can see her interests in that little text as well. And then we've got a bit bringing them both together so we can see both of them on the same screen. And finally, we've got the blurb about this event on the next screen, which is telling us about what we're going to hear about and what you've already heard. So we're very grateful to Carmen and Isabel for coming along this afternoon. Carmen gave a session to our teacher training group, our ALL teacher training conference back last summer, and they invited her very warmly to do the session once again, to include trainees this year in particular. So I think we have a lot of trainees with us, as well as a lot of other interested teachers, not just in the UK, but around the world. And we're very pleased to see all of you. So thank you for joining. And now I'm going to pass over to Carmen and then later on to Isabel.
Okay, I'll see if I can find my PowerPoint, which before I could see it and no anymore. So I'll try again. Oh.
107 people here.
Oh, great.
Wow. Brilliant.
Yes, hello everybody.
Do introduce yourself in the chat.
Okay, hopefully this will work. Okay, I think we are ready. Can you see the screen?
Yes, that's fine, Carmen.
Perfect. Right, so first, thank you very much for inviting us, for allowing us to share the projects that we've been involved in the last, for the Transmedia and Education, as you will see, is a continuation of another project for the last 4 or 5 years. And we are just going to really welcome everybody to participate in quite a few of the projects that we are being involved. I added in the chat, on the top of the chat, the link that you see there, so you can download the PowerPoint in PDF format if you want, and you can, you are free to share it. If you have any problem, just send me an email later on, and I'll be more than happy to share it with anybody that have an interest on it. So we are going to present a little bit more about the context of the situation where the project started, and it really is something that applies to everybody. We are going to then talk about the teacher training project, which was the beginning, and I understand a few of you are training to become teachers or are teacher trainers. So I think this will be interesting for quite a lot of people, but both Isabel and I are very practical people. So we are going to give you really materials and ideas that you can put in practice straight away. So the Transmedia in Education project is the more recent one, and then hopefully we'll have time to talk and answer any questions that you may have, or we can continue with the discussion if you want later on by email. So the context that we have is that we are living in a world full of images. Screens are everywhere, inside the classroom and especially outside the classroom. And sometimes I added little links there about interesting short films like this one, afternoon class, which I will encourage you to watch on your own time, which is about the difference between what the students get in the classroom, and sometimes is presented like boring, like getting to sleep sometimes, and what they have outside the classroom. So is how do we mediate between the two worlds, in the classroom and outside the classroom? And of course, we are in the middle of the pandemic, and the consequences are, on the one hand, that we need to think about pedagogical innovation related to the use of screens, because students are using more and more screens because we cannot have them in the classroom. But at the same time, this kind of teaching that we do with the screens have to compare with the kind of other outside activities that they have, the lesser activities that they do with the screens. So Isabel, you want to present about filter?
Yes, so about 10 years ago, Carmen and I had loads of resources about using films in language teaching, because we were working in close collaboration with a local cinema in Manchester, Home Cinema. And we didn't know what to do with all these study guides that we were actually producing year after year for all kinds of levels. And we decided to start a little film teaching association for the benefits of teachers, to share our resources and our study guides. And 10 years later, we have actually more than 4,900 members, and they come from 120 countries. We have resources on the website that are covering several languages, not just French and Spanish, but also other languages, including German, Italian, Chinese, Arabic, etc. The principle around filter is that we would like teachers to be able to communicate with one another and work collaboratively. And as a result of that, all the teachers have to do if they want to become a member is to send us a little a message saying they'd like to be invited, and they're invited onto the website, which is completely free. From then on, they can download all the resources that they need. So our aim at the beginning was to just share resources, but now it's become a much broader project in a way, because it includes sharing news, sharing events, communicating about conferences that are organized in the area of language and film for teaching purposes, etc. And quite a lot of members of our groups have set up their own little groups within Filter to share their common interest, to share good practice, to ask each other questions about how to deal with specific teaching issues, etc. So to make it very short and give a summary of all this, we really recommend that you join Filter, because it's going to be a really useful resource for you to get to meet teachers who teach the same language as you do, in the same kind of levels. And it will be, we hope, a very useful resource for you to use whatever aspect of language teaching you're involved in, and at whatever stage of your career you're at. Is that all right, Carmen?
Yeah, perfect. And I think the principle of Filter is a community of practice. So people join at different levels, but the important is about this community. And once you are a member, you can invite other teachers or future teachers to join. In 2013, we created also a research group called FLAME, Field Languages and Media and Education. We thought that we have the practical side with Filter, but we also need to develop more the research side, looking again to the pedagogical applications of languages, field and media. And by field, we include there a wide spectrum, any kind of audiovisual media. This is a transdisciplinary research. And again, the same principle that Filter, we invite and we are more than happy to have academics and researchers from all over the world that are working on this area, because it's the same principle that Filter. So we move to talk a little bit about the teacher training project, which is part of is part of a national project, Open World Research Initiative. The part we were linked was with the University of Manchester, and our side was to develop an application of pedagogical training related to the use of film in language teaching. Isabel, you want to talk about the insights?
Yes, so we started, this project started in 2015, 16, but we had already been involved quite a bit in developing inset training for teachers and language teachers, and particularly newly qualified teachers at Manchester Metropolitan University. And as part of the RE project, which was funded by the AHRC and therefore had quite a sort of wide publicity network for events, if you like, we picked up an idea that came a bit by chance, which was the idea of how to use short film in foreign language classes, especially to build language competence, but to build also intercultural competence. And then we developed the project further into linking the notion of studying a short film that is not necessarily part of the curriculum, but related to it, to develop critical thinking and visual literacy at A level, because as you all know, in the British system, A level includes an element of film that's pretty well compulsory. And then it developed further into using film creatively in the language classroom, where we were at this time not just critically analyzing film, but encouraging students to make their own films. So this project formed the basis of a whole program of teacher training activities that have been associated with the work we've been doing in the last 10 years. And you can see there are little examples of short film study guides that are available on Filter that have been used and tested as part of the teacher training workshops. And then we know from teachers that quite a few of them have successfully been able to use them in their own classes. And I might, if I have time, talk about an example or two in more detail later.
And we collaborated with a college in Liverpool, Hubert, and through all this process, it was important for us to ask teachers what they needed. So we did for every inset a pre-questionnaire and a post-questionnaire, and the results really was part of the following, developing for the following inset that they were working. And also we wanted to demonstrate that this was applicable to any language, and therefore that's the collaboration with TROPO, which is the Association of Teachers and Researchers of Portuguese Language. Isabel, you want to continue?
So part of those teacher training events for us had an extra added interest and were very useful because it sort of brought up all kinds of feedback from teachers themselves on how they would like our events to develop, but also the pedagogical dimensions of using short films and films in the classroom to sort of be able to do more workshops on different topics. And it was quite interesting. I'm not going to read all this out, but you can see from this slide the kind of aspects that teachers or participants in the workshop were thinking were important. And they particularly liked the idea of using film, but it was interesting to see that from the beginning, people were quite reluctant to use films in their classes, not because they didn't want to or didn't think it would be really great, but because they were a bit sort of nervous about the technical dimension and the practical sort of knowledge that they needed, and also the visual literacy that they themselves needed to acquire. And that was one of the most positive things of the program, to show that it does not take long at all to train yourself as a teacher into using film in your language classes. It's a question of a couple of hours maximum. And the vocabulary, the terminology, which is often something perceived as quite problematic, is not at all a problem after a couple of hours of training.
So the main points was to create resources, to create this framework and facilitate really material, because teachers didn't have too much time and they needed to use resources that they could either use directly or apply the principle to other resources similar. So we developed a framework based on the materials that we have been working and changing over the years, because we tested and we see what was working, particularly the principles of multiliteracies and multimodality. And as you will see, we also, because we both, Isabel and I, work with film studies and publish on this area, we included the principles of film screen studies. And one of the main elements or main ways of developing these resources, it was to think about multimodality, which basically means that more and more we are working and communicating with multimodal texts. think about it, a website will have not only written expression, but as well as images, the use of the color. And then we think about film as a multimodal test. So the meaning is not coming only from the oral or from the written elements. Sometimes you can have either credits, the credit words or subtitle, but also from the element that is coming from the visual or the space, the geographical position. And I know you may think tactile maybe it's not so much for film, but it's about more to think about how sometimes the feeling that you see in an image, that you see in a film. I'm thinking about a film like La Novia, a Spanish film, is almost a tactile experience. So the connection of all these elements is what gives you a special meaning. So this is what we need to try to interpret and to work with in the classroom.
And I think sometimes language teachers see the benefits of a film from the perspective of improving their students' listening comprehension, awareness of different accents, and so on. But in fact, the culture of the language studies comes out in all kinds of different multimodal ways as well, via the architecture of the films, for example, the geographical settings, via the interrelational the way the characters interact on screen in terms of perhaps politeness, social skills, etc. It has loads and loads of applications beyond the purely linguistics.
Okay. So we wanted also to work with short films and films because it really help the students to develop the critical analysis, which is really important for us at university level, but also we work quite a lot, as Isabel mentioned, with the students from GCSE, AS, and A-level, which is the levels before coming to the university. So working on those aspects of critical analysis, as well as developing the intercultural competence, that was very important for us in terms of using short films and films. So some of the elements that Isabel has already mentioned there, it was working not only with the dialogue and the spoken language, which is what most of the teachers tend to think about when choosing a film. It's really difficult to understand, or it's easy, or the vocabulary is all right, but really working with every single element that is available there. Isabel, you want to continue with how we apply it to the soft skills?
If you like, yes. So we had a project, as I said before, briefly relating to using short films, and there were quite clear advantages of using short films. The fact that usually in a short film, you can introduce the vocabulary of film analysis in a quite compact way. And also it has the same authentic dialogue use and the same sort of elements of accent and language variation that you could use in a longer film that very often teachers would like to use in class, but they haven't got the time or the practical ability to sort of bring into the class watching the film with the students. So it can lead to all kinds of exercises of oral and written expression, writing a review about the film, I'll come back to that in a minute, or discussing the characters, the narrative, the plot, etc. And of course, it allows all kinds of peripheral exercises, such as practicing different language structures, creating imagination games, engaging in role-playing by imitation of scenes of the film, or asking the students to imagine what the characters might have said to each other, all kinds of things like that. And I'm sure you've all practiced some of these already.
But then we thought about the importance of thinking about different levels. And sometimes we think about film as for the higher level of students, but we wanted to demonstrate that really you can use and implement the application of working with films or short films from a very low level. So then we talk about particularly those short films that didn't have any dialogue. So can they be used for working with any language? They are really ideal for developing the 4 skills. And we can see that they are really useful for creative activities, like, for example, voiceovers, or even thinking about other kind of creativity which has with storytelling.
Okay, and that's the reason why we've decided to use a mini exercise for you with a very short film called Demi-Paire. And it's a film without any dialogue, and it can be applied at any level, probably starting from an A2 level of the Common European Framework, because it is accessible from lots of levels of entry. So what we'd like you to do is to watch the clip now. It only lasts 2 minutes 49. I don't know if Carmen, you're going to try to upload it while I'm explaining what I'm expecting from the group. I'd like you to think about how you might be able to use this film at the level that's relevant to you, in terms of vocabulary building exercises, and also in terms of introducing the vocabulary of cinematography, of visual awareness, of camera use of angles, use of different types of shots. So have a look at the film, and you might have to say to yourself what you think of it, because we might not be able to hear you, but it will give you an idea of a practical application of the work we're doing.
And they can add it in the chat.
And you can put things in the chat as much as you like, yes.
Oh. Okay, going to leave it there. I don't know if anybody can see any comments or wants to add any comments about possible activities.
I think maybe we can look at the comments in a minute. I'm seeing a few comments coming in about not being able to show this film because of the beginning. I assume you mean the scene where the girl is in her bra, perhaps? So, I mean, we have been showing this film to all kinds of ages in various contexts, but I suppose, you know, it's up. I think you have to sort of set up the film but I'm seeing loads of comments coming up. Actually, it's a pity I can't read them quickly enough. But about using the conditional and all that. So I can see that quite a lot of you have already got loads of ideas on how to apply this visual little tool to all kinds of language exercises, vocabulary building. And of course, if you don't speak French, you will probably have realized that it's all about objects that are used as pairs in French and therefore require to be called une paire de, a pair of. And there's a little pun as a result in the title and in the little plot of the film about this notion that if you haven't got the two sides of what you need, you're not happy, kind of thing. Quite clearly though, I mean, I'm hoping that this little clip has lifted any kind of reservations about using a clip without dialogue, because in a way you can see how your students would not be distracted by having to look at subtitles, trying to understand what's being said, etc. They can really focus on the visual dimension. And the audio dimension is there as well with the music, but it's mostly useful to actually put all their concentration onto how it is filmed, how the camera is used. And it's a good introduction to different types of shots, including close-ups and zooms, etc., that you will find your students know all about already, and find really easy to discuss and comment on. So
And moving
as I
on,
say, it's difficult to listen to watch at the same time, but although we cannot do this exercise here in a workshop, we would have actually got the group to participate and bring up loads of ideas, and thankfully you have actually started putting them into the chat so everybody can see them, which is a brilliant way of communicating.
Can I add something else there? For us, the important thing is that when you ask the students that they are going to be watching something, a video clip, they will start to worry about, could I understand? It will be too fast. But with this one, when you said straight away, there is no dialogue, you need to focus on the other elements. Straight away, students relax and they just, as I said, they are more motivated because you are not challenging on that area at the moment in the listening, but you will be challenging them in the creation of other forms of language creation. And then related to the issue about showing or not, because it has that a little bit of an issue for certain ages. What we wanted to indicate is quite a lot of the study guides that we have created as part of this project, they don't have any dialogue and they are really for every single level. You'll see a few more later on, as well as in Filter, there is an area called videos, and there you'll find quite a lot of other resources. So if you search there for short film, no dialogue, you'll find many that you can apply to any languages, as we say. Okay, Isabel, you want to join?
Yeah, well, that's fine. I was going to say as well that the fact that there's no dialogue and therefore no verbal language in the film is a good way of you assessing how your students can actually talk about the film and therefore show that they have acquired the vocabulary without being prompted as well. And it also encourages the creative dimension because they can do all kinds of commentaries, imagining what's in the head of the girl that we see in the film and the guy as well, etc. So it adds the creative dimension that we've not had a chance to talk about yet, but that will come back in a minute in the transmedia. But it's for me to do the next slide again, because the next slide also applies to a little project I set up in 2017. And it came from an idea that was given to me by Unifrance, which is the institution in France that promotes French cinema abroad. And every year they actually have an online festival, and it's in fact running at the moment. It lasts for a month and it presents 20 short films and 10 feature films and asks people to vote for the best one in the competition. They're usually recent film and they belong to the auteur cinema tradition of France. And a couple of years ago, one of the members of Unifrance approached me asking if I wouldn't like to try and organize a film reviewing competition with the short films in my classes. And that led to the idea that has developed since with Carmen and I as part of our project with Ari, which was called the My Short French Film Festival, that we did in collaboration with Trinity High School in Manchester, and the head of French there, Cecile Jones, who really took an interest in the project and really helped me carry it out and as a pilot project. We actually organized a mini film competition using some of the film of the actual real festival, which means all the films were available online straight away for schools to use without me having to intervene. I went to do a little training sessions with the students that lasted an hour and a half, giving them the vocabulary of film appreciation, how to express opinions and all that. And we conducted the project, you won't believe this, with year 8 and year 9. And it was so popular that year 11 and year 12 and year 13 wanted to do it as well. So we completed it at different level, and we got a marvelous response from the students who really took on the challenge of writing their review in French, although they were only year 8s and some of them had only done French for a year or a bit more than a year. And with the help of their teacher, we integrated this for a couple of sessions in her classes, because she had a topic on cinema in France at the same time. We managed to have real quality reviews that expressed a lot of individual thinking, a lot of sense of appreciation of images, plot, open endings, etc. And it was a really, really interesting experience that we have tried to repeat afterwards. Carmen, if you'd like to, well, and the film that won that year is called Maman, and I make a point of this because Maman is directed by Maimouna Doucouré, who has since earned quite a lot of critical acclaim and prizes, including for this film. She has a film that is at the moment on Netflix called Mignon and Cuties, that has led to a lot of debates and cultural controversies as well. So it's interesting to see that the films that are shown via that festival are the big filmmakers of tomorrow very often as well. And for the year 11 and year 13, we use Marlon. That's fine, Carmen. You can move on to the next bit, and I'll leave you to show how we evaluate the short films.
So the principle was to try to help the students really to think about how to evaluate a short film, and to think about how this can be adapted to different levels. And as Isabel was saying, the age of the learners. It was more about the personal appreciation. So think about what they felt, what they liked of all the different short films that they were presented. Think about the plot, and as Isabel was saying, about the conventions. Most of our students are used to a closed ending. So when they have an open ending, they are very, curious why it's going to happen. And that gives a possibility of trying to imagine the ending. Working about themes, which open a wide range of vocabulary, and also for us was very important to think about the creative quality of the film as an art. As Isabel was saying, these are really amazing and excellent short films. And think about the conventions in terms of the style, of the characters, and how they communicate the message. So being able to interpret critically at different levels the message of the film. So with the practice, as you will see later on, we'll include it and apply this to Spanish. We've been developing a kind of different levels of appreciation according to year 8, year 10, and year 12. You want to continue, Isabel?
Yeah, so because we repeated the experiment. I mean, I started with the first pilot, then Carmen did a pilot in Spanish, and then we had another critical review sort of workshop, etc. We sort of came to realize that depending on the level of the students, the film reviewing exercises that had benefits that were cumulative, if you like. The more proficient in the language they became, and also the older they became in terms of being able to discuss specific elements that were very much in keeping with the national curriculum. So for the year 8, we were looking mostly at how they appreciate or like and don't like, what are their tastes, how they relate taste to conventions of genres, for example. In year 10, there was a little bit more of explanation rather than pure description of likes and dislikes. And by the time you got to year 12 and year 13, we were really linking the reviewing and contrasting it with the culture essays that they have to do in terms of critical analysis of their appreciation as well, and structured arguments with evidence and so on.
Can I clarify this, because some of the participants today, they are not from the UK, but the students who are, but for those who are not familiar, the students who are in year 12 and 13, they have to write a critical essay based on a film. For example, for Spanish is Pan's Labyrinth, El Laberinto del Fauno, or Volver. So really, this was a way of training and helping students to understand that it was a skill that they can develop from very early, and really, as they go along, they will be able to implement it in the analysis of the field that they were studying for year 13.
And in addition, the teachers often saw that that this, I'm sorry, I'm not on the transmedia yet, Carmen, but the teachers often saw that it's really important in the British system, where students decide whether they want to continue with their language learning at different stages, to actually show them that what they were doing in the early years of learning would be useful later on, and also that it was not as difficult as is sometimes perceived. So there was a very good response of the teachers, who said they wanted to introduce film appreciation before the A level.
Okay. So up to now, we've been having students as really just like the audience, and indicating the appreciation, but really more as a consumers. But the reality is that more and more students are really creating, and they are using media in a more creative way. So instead of trying to keep it separated, we wanted to see how we can really include this part of prosumer, so producer and consumer, into language teaching. So this is what it comes from, the idea of transmedia literacy, which was developed mainly by Henry Jenkins. And there was a really interesting project, a European project directed by Scolari, where they were working with this idea of transmedia literacy and seeing what young people were doing with media outside the classroom, and how this could be also implemented in the classroom. So looking at what kind of media young people were creating. So we were thinking about how we can implement this in the language classroom. And this is how the project came to continue a little bit with what we were doing in the previous projects. So you can find the website Transmedia in Education. And again, this is the work of many other people like Daniel Escandel and Sophie in the French area, and Marta as well, working in Manchester Metropolitan University, and thinking about not only short films, but also video games, and how we can create teaching materials based on these cultural artifacts to really broaden the visual competencies that the students have, and develop the storytelling skills that are really very useful in the language classroom. So again, we did another instead of using video games in the language classroom, and the video games with no dialogue, so following the same principle. All the materials are available in the website. And therefore, the framework that we were working with was developing and adding the transmedia narratives. And it's very easy to see how these sometimes have this kind of more commercial side, thinking about how comics are being translated into TV series or films, or graphic novels are being translated. And this is something that the students are very used to, and we can really take advantage in our own classroom. So as Isabel was mentioning before, we were really following the model of My French Film Festival, adapting it into Spanish. So because we didn't have any equivalent to what France was offering of allowing us to watch these films for a while, I proposed the idea to the Instituto Cervantes in Manchester and the Consejería de Educación if we could just create something similar based on short films that they were available, you know, freely available online, because the producers just get access to the short films in Vimeo, mainly on YouTube. And again, working with different schools, we tested the possibility of applying it to the different levels that Isabel has explained. But what we wanted, it was to expand a little bit more, and that's why we added there the transmedia practices. With All Than Sixth Form College and with HENMA, we started to do the field review that it was similar to what Isabel has been presented. But then the idea was to do also a video field review. So the field review was an individual activity. So the students did have a workshop. We have to do it online because we were already in the pandemic last year, and they chose individually which short film they appreciate the most. And many of them chose 036, which is a really interesting short film because it breaks kind of with the, or mix different conventions of Western and comedy, and it's a feminist film as well, or hijab, or Hoy no estoy. So each of them chose different. And because we have a good group of students, then the second part was for them to work in a group and to create a field review. And for that, they needed to understand how to use images, how to acknowledge use images, and to think about the Creative Commons licenses. So I did again a video that I shared with everybody, just about to think about how to quote images and how to put together the different images. We didn't have to go too much into the technical part because students are quite familiar with the use of media and creating videos. And the second example, just for higher education, I started a project 2 years ago, again with Daniel and with Marta, which was the idea of creating open educational resources by students, for students, which means basically our students are doing quite a lot of exams, assessments, but after that use, we never reuse those assessments in any way. So for us, it was important to think about how we can really use in a practical way and help the students to develop a professional portfolio. So what we did, it was to work with some of the students that they were happy to create a video, in the case of the first one that you see there, based on their real presentation, and share it for future students in MMUtube, which is a kind of channel equivalent to the YouTube, where students will be able to see past presentation for our students, just to get an idea and a taster of how to do, for example, a presentation on a higher level in this case. And I was also very happy to get the collaboration of Jack, which was a final year student from last year. One of the most challenging elements of assessment for our students is the dissertation, the independent research project. And I was asking him if he was able to, or happy to share some of the tips and practical advice based on his experience. So instead of doing a video, he proposed to create a series of podcasts. So at the end, he managed to create 8 podcasts. Some of them were only him talking, others were interviews with students, with the librarian, with experts. And this series of podcasts helped the students to think about how to create a wonderful and a better independent research project. So for me, the important element of this one is not to focus all the assessment on the written or only on the oral, but to be able to see that they can really transfer these skills in different media, being video, being a podcast, Or like in this year, we have, instead of writing simply an essay, students in my year 2 are doing a video essay. So they are analyzing a scene from one of the films that they're studying, but they can do it in 3 different ways: podcast, a blog entry, or a video essay. And I'm really amazed about the quality of the work that they're doing this year. So I think it gives us time to answer questions. We just managed to have 10 minutes to 4. So we have time for questions. And again, for us, it's really important, the idea of sharing and collaboration. I think that was the principle of FILTA, the principle of the film in language teaching, and also all the insights that we've been sharing here, and all the activities that we do are always shared practice with teachers and with other colleagues. So if you are interested in collaborating on finding out more about these projects, or you want to, for us to work with you because you are training other teachers, just send us an email and we'll be more than happy to collaborate as much as we can. And finally, I don't know if we said at the beginning, but we are very grateful to the Association for Language Learning for allowing us to share all these practical ways of using film, audiovisual media. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And also, I think, Carmen, we also like the idea that if you've got some good practice relating to using film or media in your classes, and you'd like them to share it, I mean, FILTA is always a nice place to host whatever good practice you've got and you'd like to share with other people.
Yeah.
Thank you to both Carmen and to Isabel for that input. You can see, if you're looking in the chat, a lot of very nice feedback coming back to thank you for your ideas and your suggestions and so on. And I particularly like the last comment that Isabel was making there. Sharing is something obviously that ALL and our members and our non-members who come to events as well really like to do. And some of the ideas that have been coming into the chat have been things linked to other recent ALL events. So that's great, because it means everything is fitting together. If you've got questions you'd like to ask, please put one into the chat now. During this session, I just spotted one that I was going to ask Carmen and Isabel to make a comment on now, which was about other films. If you have examples of other films, short films, that would be relevant to primary learners in particular. We had some of those that came out in the event on Saturday in a handout that's been shared in the chat already. But do you have any other suggestions of where to look for primary resources in particular?
We do have, I didn't include them in this presentation, but yes, we do have other short films which we use in the previous examples of my Spanish Film Festival. So I'll be happy to send them to anybody that they need. I can't remember right now the title, but as I say, in FILTA, we have a section called videos. And if you go to the videos and you play and you just search, because we have a tag for short films, no dialogue, that you'll find there quite a lot of short films that you can use. And really, most of the short films that we've been using are really applicable to and useful for any levels, like the ones I mentioned before. This one is really about crossing the borders, and we have a study guide based on that one. And because it's from the point of view of the mother and the daughter, and they don't say more than one sentence, it's really something that students will understand, and they can understand why it's a challenge and how the little girl is creating things. So I'll be happy to share later on if you want, and maybe you can add it to the information for all the students. Isabel, I don't know, you want to add anything?
Well, I just wanted to add perhaps that it's something we've been thinking for a couple of years now, Carmen and I, to actually develop the primary school levels to answer a need of teachers to have resources, because the foreign language is compulsory and all that. But again, I think it would be a good resource to look out for films that don't have any dialogue, because they really, they really allow all kinds of primary school suited exercises, and cartoons are available as well. It's not something we've had time to research properly yet, and that's why we do not have titles that come to mind quite a lot, but it could be that you want to recycle little videos that you're already using in another context, not necessarily for a language input, and just adapt the type of exercise you do.
And in FILTA, there is a subgroup called primary primary education. So they are, again, as Isabel was saying, it's not only about us adding things, it's also about asking questions. And really, the members of the group will offer you ideas and suggestions as well. And I'll be sending you a list later on if you want.
Thank you. So you have seen Carmen and Isabel's emails at the end of the presentation, in case you wanted to follow up with them in person. I see a question from Anne asking about short films if they're on YouTube, Netflix, or Amazon Prime. She says she has a personal account, but not an institution one. So how do other people do that?
Okay, most of the short films that we've been using for the competition for the Spanish are available either in Vimeo, so they are open, or in YouTube. So again, we are not expecting, you know, everybody to get access to Netflix or to Amazon Prime. So we tend to prioritize those that are available. And sometimes, as Isabel was mentioning, sometimes the first are commercial, so they are not available, but after a few years, they tend to add them and freely available. Okay.
And that's what's happened to Marlon, for example. When we did Marlon's review in the French Film Festival, it was not available freely. So after the month of the festival, we couldn't watch it anymore. But I've noticed that it's now available freely on Vimeo. And you might have noticed as well the little logo we've got at the bottom of our presentation and in certain slides, which is suggesting that if you're using a film for educational purposes, you do have a bit more leeway to use it in class and so on by using the Creative Commons sort of legislation and fair use as well.
And another important element for us was to try to facilitate that it was open for many languages, because sometimes there are a lot of materials for maybe French or Spanish, but not so much for other languages. So this will help anybody to really use these short films for any languages, Italian, Arabic, Mandarin, and French, because we want really a multilingual community. And so the more that we facilitate that kind of interaction and sharing, it was useful for us.
Yeah, somebody was asking in the chat, are there similar short films for German, Italian, etc.? There probably are, but we need a bit of help here to find them. But in the meantime, if you're teaching a language, another language than French and Spanish that we've exemplified today because it's our languages, remember that the films without dialogue can lend themselves to learning something from any perspective in any language, because they don't rely on written words or spoken words that are in a specific language.
I'm just looking for any other questions that might be coming in now to the chat. We've still got a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Helen.
I think your microphone is not on, Ellen.
Just saying, I've asked people if they wanted to open their webcams because it's quite nice to take a picture of people, if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
A little selfie.
Stop sharing. Yeah.
I should really have combed my hair before, but anyway. I have actually combed my hair. I don't know why it's like this. So yes, if you stop sharing, and then we could have people's.
Okay. Stop share.
Oh, it's lovely to see these different languages. Grazie mille per le utilissime informazioni.
Excellent.
Great. Lovely. Okay. Oh, how lovely. You're not shy, are you? You're brilliant.
No. No.
Okay, so I'll start on page 1 and then go through. Would you like to sort yourself out? Okay, so here goes. 1, 2, 3. That's my first page I've done. But you don't know which page you're on, so you just got to keep smiling all the time, because it could be you. I'm on another page now. Okay, Tanya's there, and Miki is there. 1, 2, 3. There we are. That's that page. I'm going to another page. Our page 3 and 4 haven't got their webcams on. I'll still take a picture of your names anyway. And page 4. Here are the really shy ones. Okay. Lovely. Thank you for indulging me.
And I think Carmen would be completely in agreement with me to thank you all, I mean, for taking an interest in our work, but we'd love your feedback as well. So please do not hesitate to actually give us some feedback on what we've presented today, and generally speaking on using film in language teaching.
And as I said, we are very happy to get collaborations. If you are interested in writing a study guides based on one of the short films for primary or for other education, more than happy to, to be in contact and discuss the ideas, because we are not the only ones that have creative resources. There are plenty created by other colleagues, and sometimes, we have students who are coming as a Erasmus work placement students, and they create absolutely wonderful resources as well.
Yeah, and if you were interested in doing a short film reviewing exercise, we are quite happy to share some resources with you in terms of how to train the students before they actually watch the films and all that.
So do we do a real round of applause then now? Because I could see there that a few people had their hands
Everyone
up.
can unmute now and give a real, if you like, and give a real one.
Thank you.
Good, I like the live element.
And we should also say, if you like coming to this sort of event, then you should check out the ALL London website for their webinar program. All of the webinars, I think I'm right in saying, Helen, they're all free of charge.
Yeah, all free.
You're all open to anyone who'd like to come. So
Yeah.
You're very welcome, and we'd love to see you there. I'm at quite a lot of them. Helen is at all of them, in the sequestered in her office, as you can see, just as she is at the moment.
I'm a very sad person. I just sit here all day, just letting the world into my conservatory. But I put the link there to the webinars, and really, yes, I mean, the things you were mentioning about film, it was making me think, yes, we've touched on that. And I know that Helen McFarlane is there, and we were thinking, as teachers, we just like to watch films for our own benefit as well. And we were thinking of having a little get together, weren't we, Helen, where we would just meet together and enthuse.
Oh, yeah,
And
definitely.
not necessarily think about the children, just have a film club.
Yeah, just pour yourself a gin and just press that button. No, but I think it would be great. I love the idea. Thank you, Carmen and Isabel. It was absolutely brilliant, feeling very inspired. And Helen, I have to say thank you again, and Stephen. It was just another brilliant webinar. What a lovely way to spend a rainy Monday afternoon.
I agree.
I was just thinking, Carmen, just listening to your comment there about the reviews, the examination board that we use, they don't have really any resources whatsoever. So there's a real dearth of resources. So I might actually contact you about the German resources that I'm using, French resources, and just think about how we could maybe build them up, or just get some really good ideas about how to enrich what's already available.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. And sometimes, as I say, there are for French, for Spanish, for German, for Italian. And of course, the most popular are the ones that are linked to the A-levels. But our idea was always expanding. And also, I think in the future, we'll start to work as well with television series, because if you ask the students what they watch, it's mainly, you ask them, have you watched a film? No. But have they watched a series, a TV series? Yeah. And I'm thinking about La Casa de Papel, Spanish, the Spanish one, international success. I think they're going now by 4th or the 5th series, and everybody understand and follow the principles. So they are watching more than ever, and we are not really using that in a practical way so much as we could.
My favorite at the moment, Carmen, is Walter Presents. It's fantastic. Walter presents on All 4. So I watch it in French or German and some Italian. It's just amazing, absolutely fantastic. It's really good,
Yes.
especially when you're on your exercise bike. Think, oh, that's a new word. Oh, but thank you
So
again.
hopefully from this one, we have an idea maybe for next year to do a session on primary resources, primary short films, and maybe we can apply to that one. It's always a good initiative. And then if anybody needs any special resource, just let us know, because sometimes we don't have everything, but there will be other people that have the resources or the ideas or the materials. So there it is. Maybe the beginning of more collaborations. Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I can see that this is because, well, we had our event on Saturday and Mark Reed from the British Film Institute came along, and it was just so good just to listen to him talk about a project which wasn't to do with actually necessarily just languages, but it was to do with film. And we thought, how could you use it for that? And I feel there are so many, as you say, there are different pockets of people who have got expertise in it. If we can somehow bring it all together. Certainly that link that I gave was to the site that we had where we thought, well, we'll just put any ideas that anybody has got on there. And as you said just now, it is series as well, film series. What are we watching with? I mean, Netflix. I would have loved to have had Netflix when I was a student all those decades ago. Wouldn't it be lovely?
Especially since they watch it in the original language with subtitles most of the time, which is a great victory, I think.
Yeah, that's really good.
So
it's strange that these that COVID days we actually feel more connected than before.
Good
I
point,
can't wait for Helen and I to get on our bikes with the gin. You know, we'll be there. We'll be there.
And I shall think of you. It's great for balance. Something in the left hand, in the right hand, holding on, and just pedal.
I just need to buy a bike, but apart from that,
that might be a challenge.
Yep.
Buying the bike. I believe they are very much in demand at the moment.
I'm not even going to try. It wouldn't fit anywhere in my house. Anyway.
You'll be surprised. I have it in my office, which is with all the books, and there it is, a bicycle.
Really?
Yeah. There's always a space. There's always a space.
Can I do a shout out?
Lot of film.
Just very quickly, a quick shout out for Box of Broadcasts, because you can actually edit clips of film there, which are really also quite useful. You can imagine what are they going to say and so on. So I'm just thinking about that as you were talking, Isabel and Carmen. Box of Broadcasts. I don't know if it's called Bob. People call it Bob.
Yeah.
Yes,
I don't know that.
Oh,
I've
Helen,
never
it's
heard of it.
fantastic. So I don't know if your organisation actually subscribes to that. It's called Learning on Demand, or Box of Broadcasts, and it is absolutely packed with films that have been recorded by institutions and then uploaded, so it's all legit. But you can actually, there's an editing function, so you can take a copy, you can edit it. I recently looked at, I think it was Omar Sy in Les Intouchables. Oh, fabulous. And just edited a clip and thinking, well, this is the big date. What does she say? What does he say? What do they say? What happens next? So it was just crazy, but it was good fun. But Box of Broadcasts, learning on accounts, it's really good.
Wow. And is it free? Do you have to pay membership? Or?
It's through the organisation. So I guess you would have to talk to your IT departments and find out whether they have. I don't know what all the background. I don't know the background to it all.
It's institutions subscribe to it. Yeah.
Yes, it is by subscription, but it's not individual. It's by the whole institution.
Okay.
But it's very, very careful though with your selection terms. So if you use lowercase instead of uppercase, it can be really, really fussy. But when you get there, there's a huge repository of the most amazing films. And I just think, right, that's going to be my summer binge, you know, bicycle. I'll say nothing more about the gin, and then just watch ad infinitum. It's going to be great.
That's fantastic. And are they in the target
Thanks,
language? Are they dubbed or?
They have,
Subtitled.
yeah,
Subtitled.
they have to be recorded from a terrestrial free television.
Yeah.
So you might find that for some of the French films, you get them in German because they've been recorded on Arte. So you have to do a little check before you assume that it's there, because sometimes, for example, Nikita is there, but in German.
Okay.
which is a bit weird. It's an interesting prospect, but it's a bit weird for the French students.
Yeah.
And I don't think it has many short films, but maybe that's something Carmen and I should investigate, how we can encourage people, because the short films are shown on television, so I don't see why they couldn't go on Bob's.
But Isabel, that's exactly what I'm saying. There is an editing tool, so you can decide when you want the clip to start. So you can take a copy of a particular section or episode of the film, and then you just edit it with questions and so on. So you're not actually impacting on the original recording. Everything you're doing is just working with a particular section or clip of that film, but it's all edited for you, but then it gets posted as well.
Yeah. I was thinking more of the benefit of a short film that has got an enclosed story and allows you to teach a whole story with not just a clip. I often teach clips, but I also like this idea of giving the students the experience of a complete film that's under 10 minutes, you know.
And I can see now that everybody's adding suggestions of short films, of titles. So this is the idea. Just now, people are adding suggestions of other short films that are great. El Pueblo, Cuerdas. So if we continue like this, we'll have a lot of
we'll have a database. Yeah, we'll have a dream database.
And how, can I just ask, are you on Twitter, or what sort of way would you communicate? Because I think nowadays so many language teachers I know are on Twitter, but I think there must have been loads of people who aren't. And so it's almost whether you have a particular platform where you could just have a hashtag and say, here's a film, or I don't know.
I have Twitter and I'm quite active. There should be a Twitter for Field and for Flame, but I cannot be in 3 places. But most of the times I just upload information in Filter. And if it's something like this event, I upload it and share it with everybody. If it's, for everybody interested. Anybody can upload any information of an event as long as it's relevant, at least in certain level, for the association. So anything to do with audiovisual media, language teaching, we are more than happy. In fact, I have now 2 events to advertise: a festival that is about the child in Spanish cinema. So that's a free festival, and I need to upload the information. And of course, Isabel mentioned home. The activities that we do with GCSE and A-level for French, Spanish, German, and Arabic and Mandarin, I think. And this year is online. So that will be the opportunity of teachers joining with their school from all over the UK, really. So normally teachers say, oh, I cannot come from Wales or from Edinburgh or from London, although they have come from Wales to Manchester in certain occasions. But that's the best way, really. Filter is a platform to share information, event, resources, and when I see a really good video, anybody can upload as well. The link is the link to the Vimeo, to the YouTube. You don't upload the whole video, just the link.
So really the answer, I mean, I was asking a question which I should have been listening properly, that really what you're saying is that the filter is the platform you use. That, I mean, Elizabeth is asking, is there an email register to get news about the festivals? Presumably as I did right at the beginning, I've requested to be part of your filter network. So if we're all part of that, that's the way that we then get this information.
It's a little bit like a Facebook, that's the idea. But it's closed, so that means that you need to demonstrate that you are a teacher or a future teacher. And once, I check, send you an invitation, and once you're a member, that's it. You can invite your teachers, future teachers, PVC trainees, everybody that is related, because that's another facility. Once you are a teacher, let's say you have the ability to invite other people, because we don't have any funding. So the only way we have grown to have almost 5,000 members is because the materials, the information, and the quality, I guess, is good, and it really helped people to, you know, to be working professionally in this area. But that's the only way we grow, because
So
I've put it in again, and Elizabeth has just said, can we invite teachers from other countries?
yes, it's from all over the world, anywhere. You know, we don't put any limitation. In fact, at the very beginning, it was mainly teachers from the UK. And after, I would say, 4 or 5 years now, we receive mostly requests from other countries that is not the UK. So really is everywhere.
So that, and someone's asked if I'm a PGCE student, that's fine.
Absolutely. And in fact, coming to this event over the last week, we have quite a lot of requests from PGCE students. I think some of you have been saying to your students, so we are very grateful for that, because for us it's very important, and they are all important at different levels. And I think it's also for us, one of the elements that we wanted to do this, and we've done training, a whole inset of, it was in London and another one in Manchester. It was like 5-6 hours, and we addressed mainly PGCE students, because we wanted to do the training and to facilitate for them to understand that they can include it. So PGCE students were our main aim over the last 2 years, really.
And QTS students as well.
Yeah.
And newly qualified teachers, sorry.
Yeah.
And teacher educators?
Absolutely. Those are the most important ones.
Absolutely.
Create a group, please.
So yes, and in fact, I can't remember, but before all this happened, we were saying about doing events, because the good thing about the, you know, having to do it online is that we can really offer this to many, many, many different people, having almost 140 or 130. That's amazing. And the thing is, we've done in sets now online. We did a conference in December, and we got, you know, participants from all over the world. So this could be a really good way of running a session for PGCE, you know, students, longer than 1 hour, maybe 2 hours.
Well, can I say that, I mean, from ALL's perspective, we pay to have this room and to be able to have up to 500 people all the time. So, I mean, you just need to, if it helps at all, I know that different people have got organizations, they may not need that, but if ever you want to set it up, just let us know and we can just do it. And it doesn't have to be just an hour. It can be longer if you want, as it is now. And I'm still recording, I realize as well.
We are thinking about a session for Arabic, because that's one of the languages we want to work. So maybe we will contact you, because this will be a really good way of facilitating this specific session for Arabic teachers, because that was one of the areas. Obviously, it will be one of our colleagues to run the session along with either Isabel or myself.
Yeah, they'll be very, very happy to do that.
And then now that we know that we established this collaboration, maybe next year, as I said, the primary level with using short films.
Great. Okay. Shall I stop the recording now?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much.
It was very useful.
Yes.